The US election heating up, I decided to bring back the Travel and Government vlog. I decided to do it a little bit differently, that you ask me a question, I'll give you the answer. So the first question comes from one of my friends in Sudbury, and that is, as a senator for Vermont, Bernie Sanders is set as an independent. Is he allowed to run for president as an independent, or must he be a member of one of the two main parties? And the second part of the question is, the U.S. currently has a term limit for their presidents for 8 years. Is this 8 years total? Or after a certain amount of time, is a president allowed to run again? So, both of those answers are fairly complex, and I'll begin with the first question. In U.S. presidential politics, the parties really are a byproduct of how they elect the president. So the president is not directly elected, but elected through an electoral college. And say there was 3 parties running for president: the Democrats, the Republicans, and a third party. Well, should there be a third party running for president, it's likely that they would get some electoral votes. So let's look at a situation where no one gets a majority of electoral votes, and what happens? It's not a first past the post system. So what would happen is the House of Representatives would then elect the president, voting by state, which gives Delaware the same voice as California. And the Senate would elect the vice president, which means that you could have a president and a vice president of 2 different parties. So it's safer in terms of electoral college votes to run for one of the 2 main parties. The other part of this is money. And in terms of money, the 2 main parties know how to raise it very well. So the 2 main parties is better suited to be the ultimate nomination for president. The other part of this is ballot control, and different states have different ballot controls. So in many states you have to either show that you have a certain percentage of support to get on the ballot, or other issues. It's best done at a national level by one of the 2 main parties who knows the rules inside and out. What you saw with Ross Perot in the early 90s running for the Reform Party in the US is that, in essence, he wasn't on the ballot in many states because he didn't surpass the ballot control measures. So that's really the answer to the first question. It's possible to run as a third party, but under the current system, very unlikely that you would be able to win. Second question has to do with term limits and the 22nd Amendment. And I'll begin by this. Up to the 1900s and 1947, there was no term limit for a president. A president could do as many terms as they wanted. They set the example on George Washington, who did 2 4-year terms, and that was it. The one exception would be FDR, who ran 3 times. But no one really ran more than twice. So what happened is the Congress and the states put in an amendment to the Constitution to put the George Washington Convention into law. And that is that you can only run 2 times and win to be president. Now there's a few exceptions for that. The first is anyone who was president before 1947 when the amendment was adopted. No one's living. There's no living presidents before 1947, so that's no one. The second is the vice president who assumes the presidency after less than 2 years. So should a president be assassinated or resign or impeached after 1 year, 355 days, then the U.S. vice president would assume the presidency and could run 2 full terms. which would make them president for about 10 years. However, these situations happen so seldom. Really, as a general rule, it's 2 years terms and that's it. So I hope that answers your question. Feel free to send me more questions on the social media below in the description box. That is, and happy politicking.